Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're trying to cut through some of the noise on a topic that, well, it really defines our era, globalization.
Mm.
It's that intricate web connecting everything, isn't it? From the phone in your hand to, I don't know, the food on your plate.
It really is, and it seems so pervasive, but often it gets boiled down to simple good or bad.
Exactly, which it rarely is.
And that's why there's such a lively and, yeah, often pretty contentious debate around it. Is all this connection, this tightening global fabric, is it really a net positive? Does it speed up progress, foster understanding?
Or does it come with significant downsides, like maybe making inequality worse or washing away unique cultures?
Precisely. There are really strong arguments coming from both directions.
Absolutely. So our goal here for this deep dive is to get past those easy headlines. We want to give you a concise but really well-informed view on this whole complex thing.
Sort of a shortcut to getting the nuances.
Yeah, exactly. A shortcut to understanding. Okay, so to really get a handle on this, let's start with the positives, or at least what many people see as the big wins of globalization. And that often starts with economics, right?
Yes, the economic impact is usually front and center.
So where do we see those foundational benefits, especially around growth and, well, efficiency?
Well, a key idea here is what economists call comparative advantage. It sounds technical, but it's basically about countries specializing.
Doing what they do best.
Exactly, what they can produce most efficiently. And then, if they trade freely with others, well, the whole global economic pie tends to get bigger.
Okay.
So you end up with more stuff, a wider variety of goods, often at lower prices for consumers.
Right. Like clothes, electronics.
Yeah, think about how the cost of many of those things has changed over the decades. A lot of that is down to these global supply chains. Some studies even argue it's like giving a hidden raise to lower-income families because their money goes further on necessity.
That's a compelling point, the direct economic boost.
Yeah.
But it's not just about buying things cheaper, is it? Does this connection go deeper, maybe change how cultures interact?
Oh, absolutely. Commerce might kick it off, but globalization genuinely fuels a huge amount of cultural exchange.
More than just food or music crossing borders.
Much more. It's not just, finding sushi in Kansas or K-pop
Yeah.
becoming huge globally. It leads to real fusion, hybridization of cultures, new art forms, new music, new ideas about how to live.
And does that familiarity help understanding?
That's the argument. This kind of exposure, it can really enrich our lives, but also, hopefully, build more empathy. You get more familiar with different perspectives, different ways of life.
Okay, so that rapid exchange, it feels like that would speed up other things too, like technology. How does globalization act as, well, a booster there?
Yeah, booster, or maybe even supercharger is a good way to put it. Global collaboration in research and development.
Hmm.
It means innovation can happen much, much faster.
Can you give an example?
Sure, think about the speed of the mRNA vaccine development during the pandemic. That involved researchers and data from all over the world. Or look at open source software that's built by a global community.
So knowledge just spreads quicker.
Basically, yes. It crosses borders incredibly fast. You avoid people reinventing the wheel. You build on each other's breakthroughs, whether it's medicine or renewable energy tech or AI. It accelerates progress.
It's a powerful idea, then, that these economic and tech ties might actually make the world more peaceful. This idea of interdependence reducing conflict.
It's definitely a core argument, often called interdependence theory.
Right.
The thinking is, if our economies are so deeply tangled up, the cost of starting a conflict becomes just huge for everyone involved. It disrupts trade, stability, everything.
Does the evidence back that up consistently, or have there been times when it, well, hasn't worked?
It's not foolproof, of course. There are historical examples where deep economic ties didn't prevent war, but generally speaking, especially in the sort of post-World War II era with more global institutions, the trend does suggest a strong incentive for cooperation.
So countries have more to lose.
They arguably have much more to lose by fighting than by cooperating when their economies are linked. It's a strong case for the positive side of globalization.
Okay, so that paints a pretty positive picture overall, but as you said earlier, it's complex. It's definitely not all smooth sailing,
Oh, no,
like
not.
a two-sided coin, right? There's this other crucial side, the criticisms, the drawbacks, and some of them are pretty significant.
Absolutely. And perhaps one of the most common concerns you hear, and for good reason, is about jobs and inequality.
Job displacement.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. We've certainly seen manufacturing jobs, for instance, in many developed countries move to places where labor costs are lower.
And while maybe new jobs appear elsewhere.
Right? New jobs might emerge in tech or services, but that transition can be really painful. You can leave whole communities facing unemployment, real hardship.
Hmm.
And beyond that, there's the issue that the benefits aren't always spread evenly. Globalization can, and some argue often does, worsen the gap between the rich and the poor.
Both within countries and between them?
Yes, both. It can create winners and losers, sometimes exacerbating existing inequalities or creating new ones based on skills needed for the globalized economy.
And then there's the cultural side again, but from a different angle. As everything gets more interconnected, is there a worry about losing what makes places unique?
There absolutely is. It's often termed cultural homogenization.
Homogenization, okay.
The fear is that as these big global brands, global trends become dominant everywhere, think fast food, certain music styles, movie franchises, does that squeeze out local traditions, local languages, customs? Do they just fade away or struggle to compete?
A kind of flattening of culture.
That's the concern, yeah, that we might lose some of the world's rich cultural diversity.
Another really critical angle, and one that feels more urgent all the time, is the environment. What's the environmental footprint of all this global activity?
It's significant. I mean, think about it. More global trade means more shipping, more air freight, more trucks on the road.
All burning fuel.
Exactly. It adds up to a major contribution to carbon emissions and climate change. Container ships, planes, they're huge sources.
And is there more to it than just transport?
Well, yes. There's also the argument about production itself. The pressure for lower costs can sometimes lead companies to places with, let's say, less stringent environmental rules.
A race to the bottom.
Some call it that, yes,
Yeah.
where environmental standards might be weakened to attract investment, potentially creating pollution hotspots.
And as we talk about these downsides, the pressure for low costs, that brings up some really difficult ethical questions, doesn't it? About the human cost.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
This is maybe the darkest side of globalization when it's not managed well.
Exploitation. Human rights issues.
Yes. That relentless drive for cheaper products can, unfortunately, incentivize some companies to operate where labor laws are weak or just not enforced properly,
Leading to.
leading to potentially terrible working conditions, very low wages, excessive hours, or even in the worst cases, things like child labor, hidden deep in complex supply chains.
And it must be hard to even track that.
It's incredibly challenging. Tracking and regulating these sprawling global networks to ensure everyone is treated ethically, with dignity, that's a massive ongoing struggle for governments and human rights groups, a really vital one. So, putting it all together, it's really clear that globalization isn't simple. It's not just good or bad.
Definitely not.
It's this really multifaceted process. It has these profound impacts of economic, cultural, technological, environmental, ethical.
Right.
And understanding that complexity, accepting that it has all these different facets, that's really the key. More important than landing on a simple verdict.
That's a great takeaway. For you listening, it really is crucial to look past those simple headlines, to always be asking, who's really benefiting here? What are the ripple effects?
Intended and unintended.
Exactly. Both. That kind of thinking is just essential if you want to make sense of the world we live in, this incredibly interconnected world.
Indeed. And, most experts, even those critical of its effects, don't really argue for reversing globalization. That seems, probably impossible anyway. And it would create its own huge problems.
So what's the alternative?
The focus is more on managing it better, more effectively.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, it involves things like putting policies in place for fairer trade. Not just free trade, but fair trade. Stronger protections for workers' rights globally. Making environmental sustainability a real priority, not an afterthought.
And helping those left behind.
And crucially, yes, supporting the people in the communities who are negatively impacted by these big global shifts. Helping them adapt, whether it's through retraining, investment, or other support.
So it really comes down to striving for that balance, doesn't it? Trying to make sure globalization's advantages, which are undeniable in many ways, can be shared more widely, more equitably. Trying to make it genuinely work for everyone.
That's the goal, or at least the ideal.
So thinking about that challenge, striving for a balance where these advantages are shared fairly, what does it really mean for globalization to work for everyone? And maybe for you listening, how can you spot its ripple effects, good and bad, in your own life and in the world right around you?